Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Deacon Hayes, and this is the second live stream of the Free Money Masterclass, where today we're going to focus on how to pay off debt quickly. So thank you for being here. I will be answering money questions throughout this live, so if you have them, please drop them in the chat. I've got some preloaded questions here from the audience that we'll go over. And before we do that, what I want to do is kind of every time we meet, do kind of a state of the economy. So where are things at? What's going on? And so, kind of current events that apply today. So one of the things we did, we kicked this off last week when we talked about budgeting basics. We talked about mortgage rates. So let me share my screen here with you so you can kind of see what I see. So that's not good. You are not seeing what I see right now. And it should be the laptop screen there. There we go. So basically, mortgage rates right now are 7.08%, which is incredible. So I did this calculation. I put, if you bought a house at $400,000 a year ago, a year and a half ago, and you got a 3% mortgage, your mortgage payment's around $1,600 a month. If you were to get the same $400,000 mortgage today, you'd be paying $2,600 per month. That's $1,000 more, and it's all going towards interest. So really, that is going to have an impact on people's buying decisions, people's selling decisions. Still be determined. So I thought I'd just keep you up to date on that. Another thing that came out, which is very interesting, for those that are collecting Social Security, there's actually going to be a COLA adjustment, which means the cost of living adjustment, and it's going to be increased. It's about 8.7% is what they're saying on average. And so we're looking for that increase here, which will be about $144 increase on the average monthly retiree check. So if you know someone that's getting Social Security, that's something that they need to look out for if that's you yourself. Another thing, so Biden's debt student loan relief application is still set to be dropped this month in October, available through the end of the year. It'll be on a .gov site. You're not going to have to prove how much money you make, but you will have to say certify under penalty of perjury under the laws of the United States of America that the information provided is true. So you have to make less than $250,000 as a married couple or $125,000 as an individual. So that's going to be dropping here this month. They've announced. And then lastly, I thought this was interesting. Starbucks and Delta have partnered up. So basically, if you have a Delta, if you fly Delta, you can get free Starbucks. And if you get Starbucks, you can get miles by buying Starbucks. And so here are some of the benefits of that. So after your accounts are linked, you'll earn 1 mile per $1 spent on purchases at Starbucks. On days that you have a scheduled Delta flight, you'll earn double Starbucks. And it's open to new members and existing members. So thought that was interesting for those of you that actually go to Starbucks and fly. There's a new way to earn points and rewards there. But let's get into some of these questions here. So let me transfer back here, pull up the questions from our audience. So the first question that we have is from Amanda. So Amanda says, when you paid things off and the credit card's still open, you put a small balance on it and let it show on the credit report before paying it off. Let me move this over here so I'm looking at you guys. And so the idea is, should you continually spend on a card even after you paid it off? And so the answer is, it depends. Really what you want to look at is what your credit utilization rate is. So that basically is the amount that you use the credit card. So if you have an available limit of $1,000, you want to keep it no more than 30% at any given time, which would be about $300 on a $1,000 limit. This tells lenders that you're a lower risk and that your credit score is going to be good and you're going to be able to, have access to credit if you should need it. So that's what I would say. Instead of it being a matter of, how much you put on it, when you put on it, keep it under 30%, pay it off every month so you're not paying any interest. That's the best way to go. Another question from Amanda. So when looking to buy a new car, do you suggest having a large down payment or just keeping the payment the same and not pay it off early? So here's my thing on new cars. Cars depreciate. We're in a weird place where there were some used cars that appreciated, but in large, they depreciate. In fact, there was a study done by LendingTree that the average car over 5 years depreciates 40%. That's a huge amount of money. And what happens a lot of times when people get a car payment is they get in so deep, and they say they lose their job 3 years from now and they go to sell it. They can't sell it because they owe more on it than it's worth. So in my mind, I wouldn't even put a large car down payment on. I would pay cash. And so that's what we do now. So the last car I think I paid $15,000 cash for. It takes time to save that up. I mean, at one point we were $2,500 cars. Another point we're at $5,000 cars. Another point we're at $10,000 cars until our income went up, our debt went down, and we had more cash to be able to buy more of a car. Now, one of the fallacies is that used cars are not reliable. It's just not true. Like, I've had Hondas, Toyotas, Nissans. They're very reliable. There are certain brands of cars. I won't name them. I'm not here to knock cars. But the reality is if you buy a brand that is reliable historically, you should be okay. If you have an emergency fund, it makes it even better, right? So if you've got 3 to 6 months of emergency fund, you can weather the storm if you got to make, a car repair and things of that nature. So appreciate your questions, Amanda. This question's from Sarah. So would you recommend getting a debt loan to consolidate credit card debt or continue paying off as much as you can each month, unable to sell vehicles or increase income? So I think this is important because sometimes people think that, oh, everybody can make extra money and, well, don't you have cars you can sell so that you can do it? So for Sarah's question, what I'm going to say, this is what we did. So basically, we had $52,000 in debt. We paid it off in 18 months. Part of that equation was selling our upside down car. So basically, we had a car that was worth $17,000. I owed about $18,000 on it. I came up with the difference, paid it off. My wife had a car that was worth $5,000. We were able to, buy 2 cars with that $5,000. So one for her, one for me, under $5,000. Now, what was left was credit card debt. And student loans. And so for the credit card debt, we ended up getting a personal loan at 5%, and interest rates at that time are about 20% on credit cards. So we saved about 15% on our credit card debt by consolidating to a personal loan. Now, this isn't for everybody. I don't say don't go to a debt consolidation company. This is a personal loan. So there are companies that do this, and you could probably get them 5 to 7% right now if you have good credit. Now, the idea is you don't want to get an origination fee, which means you have to pay a fee to get the loan. You don't want that. And you don't want to get a loan that has a prepayment penalty because basically they'll ding you if you paid off early. The whole idea is to pay off debt faster, right? And so for us, what we were able to do is save that 15% in interest, which gave us more money that we could throw down on the debt and pay it off even faster. So my number one thing that I would say, in Sarah's case, she said she couldn't sell any cars and didn't have the ability to get extra income. But if you do have the ability to get extra income, that's always the way I would go over consolidating any day of the week. So try your best to figure out ways. We have articles on wellkeptwallet.com where it's 75 ways to make money on the side, 80 best money-making ideas. I mean, there's so many ways that you can make money. Comb through those to get some ideas on how to make some extra cash in the mornings, while you're waiting in line, at the doctor's. I mean, there's so many ways to make money. So thanks for your question there, Sarah. So on to the next question we've got from Austin. Should I buy the newest iPhone with a credit card? So here's one of the things that's interesting. I've definitely, over the years, have kind of changed my tune on credit cards, and here's why. So I think that there's a season in life where sometimes if you prove that you don't have the discipline to pay it off and you're paying that high interest, it does not make any sense whatever. But if what we've been doing is we've been paying our credit card off in full every month. We never carry a balance. And so the idea is, if you want to buy that iPhone and you can pay it off and you have the cash to pay it off, then go for it. If you don't, definitely don't put it on a credit card, right? My thought in that, from that standpoint, would be to create a sinking fund. This is where you put money aside every month to buy the iPhone. So just for these purposes, let's say the iPhone's $1,200, which sounds ridiculous for a cell phone nowadays, but that's just what it is. It could be even more depending on which one you get. So the idea is if $1,200, if you put $300 away for 4 months, you'd be able to pay cash for that iPhone. You're not putting any interest on it, so you're paying the actual price of it. And on top of that, you feel like you earned it, right? It's not like you're borrowing somebody else's money and then eventually going to pay it back. It's like, no, you intentionally were disciplined about saving up the money, putting it in a fund so that you can pay cash for it. So, if you can pay it off every month, buy it with a credit card. If you can't, put it in a sinking fund. Thanks for the question, Austin. Next up is Marcella. She asked a couple questions last week. She's got a couple more again this week. I love her questions. They're really good. So years ago, I used to hear the phrase good debt and bad debt. is this still a good theory to live by? So here's what I'd say. Debt is not, it's amoral. It's not good or bad. It's what you do with it, right? So in my mind, it's less about good debt and bad debt. It's about what does your financial picture look like, right? And so if you have credit card debt, that's high interest debt. I would say that that's not usually a good place to be, right? You'd want to pay that off quickly because you could be getting much better rates somewhere else on a personal loan or having no debt at all, right? So in my mind, it's less about good debt and bad debt. It's more about just having an action plan to address whatever debt that you do have. First goes consumer debt. Then I would say investing, maxing out at least 15% or maxing out your IRAs. And then I'd say if you have extra after that, then start to tackle mortgage debt. So that's kind of the approach that I would do. So another question from Marcella: How should debt be managed for a business? Should business debt be managed the same as personal debt? And so actually this is a very good question because they are very different, right? So in a business, if you have different assets, you can depreciate those assets. So let's just say you buy equipment and you can depreciate it over a certain period of time. It is definitely treated differently. So really what matters is that whether you're a business or an individual, that you have a plan to tackle that debt and that you have the income and the revenue to pay it off in the time frame that you want to pay it off in. And so really that would say, okay, so if you have a business, you want to be able to make sure that you're making payroll. You want to make sure that you're paying rent. You want to make sure that you're paying any of your operational expenses, right? And so then if you have extra left over at the end of the day and you have no prepayment penalty for whatever it is that you're trying to pay off, then you can start to tackle that business debt. So that kind of be the approach that would go there, Marcel. Great question. I'm actively looking for ways to bring in additional money to pay off my debt, but I've been considering consolidating my debt under one loan. We kind of talked about this earlier, but let's see where she goes here. Is this wise, or does debt consolidation end up costing more than paying off my debt in the long run? I know it could be risky if I'm not disciplined enough to make new charges on cards that are paid off. Yeah, so that's a good point. So let's say that you did go the consolidation route. Are you going to stop using your credit cards? Because really the reality is the reason why people and why we had to consolidate was we had multiple cards and we weren't disciplined about paying them off every month. And it would just build up, build up, build up. So my fear would be you get the debt consolidation loan, you still use the credit cards, you're slowly paying down the consolidation loan, but then you're slowly building your debt back up, right? So really that discipline is key. So in my mind, if you have the ability, like I mentioned earlier, to increase your income, that's always the way that I would go. I'd figure out ways that require little capital to be able to increase your income so that you could pay off your debt even faster. The other way would be to reduce your expenses. So we actually launched a free 5-day money masterclass. You can sign up for it at wellkeptwallet.com or under this video right here. But it's completely free, no strings attached. But we'll talk about ways that you can increase your income, how you can pay your debt off fast, how to create a budget that actually works, how to track your financial progress. All of these things we'll cover in that class. So really, if you're looking for legit ways that you can make some extra money so you can pay off your debt instead of consolidate, that's the way I would go. So her last question here is, and if you have questions, once again, please drop them in the chat. I'll try the best I can to answer them. If that consolidation is an option to consider, how do I determine which loan offer to accept? I receive letter offers and also see suggested businesses on Credit Karma that offer me loans. So basically, there's all sorts of people that want to loan you money, right? And so she's basically trying to figure out, how do I vet the company that I'm actually going to go with? So one of the things I would do is go to the Better Business Bureau, right? Make sure that they are a legit company. There's a lot of scam, a lot of frauds. You want to make sure that you're working with a reputable brand. Usually if you have something like Credit Karma, Credit Sesame, they're working with reputable brands that you probably heard of. And so you're going to be able to kind of vet those pretty quickly. And like I had mentioned earlier for, I believe it was Sarah's question about consolidating, you want to look for two things. Is there a prepayment penalty? So do I have to pay a fee for paying it off early? And is there an origination fee? Do I have to pay a fee to actually get the loan? Because if you have those two things, it's probably not worth doing. And so I would really consider just doing your best to come up with some extra income on the side. What I want to do here is I'm going to pull up while I'm doing this. If you have any questions in chat, go ahead and do that. I'm gonna pull up our side hustle one because I think this is a really good post. So you go to Wellkept Wallet side hustles. It will give you 75 ways to make extra money, and some of them won't be apply to you, but some will. So that's the whole idea: is you find the ones that do apply to you, and you say, okay, what could I do with my time here? So I'm going to pull that up and share on my screen with you guys. Thank you for those guys that are watching. Let's see if we can get this to switch over. Perfect. All right. So that's not me in the without the shirt on there. It's some other guy, but good for him. So anyways, okay, so 75 ways, right? And you kind of go through here. The cool thing about this is we have quick links. So you can scan through and say, oh, I want to get paid using my car. Click on it. All right, I'm an introvert. I don't want to drive people around. I have nothing. Oh, deliver food. Postmates, that could be a great way to do it. Rent out your car. This is another thing. So let's say you have a 9-to-5 job and you're just literally, you have a car just sitting there. You could rent it out while you're working on a site like Hire Car or another site called Turo. So you can make money while your car is just sitting there in a parking garage. They go pick it up, bring it back before you're done with work. List your house or a room on Airbnb. We did that for a while. We had an Airbnb we were renting out. That can be a way to make some extra money. Another thing, this is really cool. So this is a huge part of the equation. There's only two things you can do to pay off your debt faster. Increase your income, decrease your expenses. So right now we're just talking about increasing your income, right? Well, there's a site called Neighbor where you can actually rent out space and store stuff for people. So let's just say someone's moving and they need a place to store stuff and you've got a guest bedroom, right? You can get paid to do that. So Neighbor could be a great place to make some extra money, right? That's why I think these lists, they stimulate like, what can I do, right? You only know what you know. And so if you look at a list like this, you're like, oh, maybe you didn't know that you could rent out your spare bedroom. Maybe you didn't know you could rent out your car, right? These are ways that you can make money. Here's another way, selling stuff on Etsy. I have a buddy that sells PDFs on Etsy and he makes about $1,000 a month. It's a PDF, but it's something that people love. And, but if you're into making stuff, Etsy can be a great way to sell handcrafted items. Anything like shirts. I bought like a little computer case on there one time. That was a custom case, right? There's all sorts of stuff you can buy in there. Clean homes and businesses, become a freelancer. This is great because there's a site called Upwork that I really love. So if you're good at writing, if you're good at proofreading, graphic design, website design, that kind of stuff, you can literally just create a profile on there and people will start sending you job offers, right? Like, oh, I looked at your stuff. Can you give me a quote on what this would cost? So there's two sites, upwork.com, fiverr.com, which would be great places to look for freelance work. Another one. So I have a friend, her name's Carrie, and she's a voiceover artist. I remember they were traveling the United States in like an RV, and she's literally doing her voiceovers in an RV, and she's got kids, like blows me away because everybody would have, not everybody, but sometimes we have excuses like, oh, I can't do it. I've got kids right next to me. Like, well, you create a room where it's quiet and that you can't hear the kids, so she did that and she's done voiceovers for Taco Bell, Disney. So totally possible. If you have a good voice, you want to get into that, you can check out her course or just go to, I think Voices 123 is where I've hired voiceover people from before. That can be a great resource. So once again, if you have questions, drop them in the chat and I'll try to answer them there. I'm just going to go over a few more of these and then we'll go over the other side of the equation, which is essentially reducing your expenses, right? So here's another way that I love, repairing electronics, right? Let's just say that you're good with computers, you're good with cell phones. It's crazy how much they charge to, like, if you have your iPhone screen breaks and it's like $200 to replace that screen. It really doesn't cost $200. It costs maybe $40 or $60 of materials. The rest of it's labor, right? So that's the idea, is you could probably make $50 to $100 repairing someone's screen. You do a few of those a day. That's not too bad. So we'll pick a couple more unique ones. Oh, I love transcribing. So transcribing is super easy. If you're good at typing, I'm more of a hunt and pecker, so I'm not really like a good, when it comes to typing. But for some people that are good at typing, transcribing is awesome. So people will pay you to listen to audio and just type it out for them. These could be medical places. It could be legal places. It could be websites. Podcasts. There's all sorts of companies that would hire people to transcribe audio for them. And we'll do one more. I just love these like interesting ways that people make money. Let's see here. Last but not least. Okay, so here's a good one. Teaching English from home, $20 per hour, working from home. Basically, there's a site called VIP Kid. I think another one called Book Nook. But there's people overseas that are looking to learn English. And even people here that learn in the United States want to learn English. You can get paid up to $20 an hour, depending on what site you go to. So this could be a great way to make some extra money. So let's transition a little bit here. I'm going to transition to back here. So you guys are, so we're looking here. I'm going to look up the best post for us now on reducing your expenses, because this is really the other side of the equation that you have more control over, right? Maybe you have very little time to get an extra job. So you're like, hey, how can I reduce my expenses, right? And then the other thing is, how can you do it in a way where you're not jeopardizing kind of like your lifestyle, right? You're like, hey, you kind of want to do things. You want to enjoy life. You don't want to feel like you're constrained. So one of the things that I would say, so I'm gonna share my screen again here so you can see this. So this is 33 ways to save money. You can find it on our Save Money tab here. But basically, one of the things you want to do is, I think it's important to have a why, right? So we have 3 here. Make a list of your financial goals. Like, what do you really want to achieve? Because you really want to know why you want to achieve it before you'll actually do what it takes to achieve it, if that makes sense. And so once you do, you say, okay, I really want to be able to retire early. I really want to be able to send my kids to college. Whatever those reasons are why you want to save money, have that list to motivate you to do it. So here are some things that you can do. So for instance, we'll try to just, I'll just scan here. So being mindful of water and electric usage, right? So I know my kids love their underwater. I actually put a lock on one of our faucets outside so that they're not running it, or spigot, I should say, because it would just run it for hours if I let them. So being mindful of water usage, your heating and air conditioning, making sure that you seal your house so that all the windows, doors are sealed, so heat and cold are not creeping in to, wear out your air conditioning units and your heating units. That's another great way. So yeah, not falling for the new car lure, right? So the idea is, like, cars are a big expense next to houses. I think the average car payment I went over last week was like $667. I mean, that's a lot of money to be paying towards a car. And so that's one thing to consider. So create a list of cheap meals, right? I think that's the other thing. Groceries are expensive these days. So figuring out ways that you can cut money any way you can. And so find cheap meals that you like. I remember I was watching this guy on TikTok, and it's funny because he's ripped. He's got his shirt off, and he's like, I'm going to teach you how to eat healthy and do it affordably, right? And so he gets like 6 pounds of chicken breasts, and he puts them in a crock pot. Take some taco seasoning. He's telling you how much it costs. I think the chicken was like $12. The taco seasonings, I don't know, a couple bucks. And then there was one other thing. I mean, it was pretty basic. Potatoes. It was like potatoes, and it was a huge bag of potatoes, right? It was less than $20 for all of this food that he was preparing, and he was going to use them for meal prep throughout the week, right? So I mean, this takes intentionality. But the reality is, if you have your list of whys, then you're going to do what it takes to make it happen. We'll go over a couple more of these. Have movie nights at home. I know that people have been doing that more just because of COVID and such. I mean, everybody's been at home. And that's not probably as big of an expense these days. Another thing could be buying secondhand, right? I buy pretty much all my jeans secondhand on Poshmark. Which sounds funny, actually, now saying it out loud. But the reality is, I literally buy jeans that would normally cost $100 to $120 for $30, right? And maybe you don't want to buy those kind of jeans, and that's okay. You want to buy Levi's, you could probably buy them on Poshmark or eBay even, or if you want to go to a thrift store. There's plenty of places where you can buy name brand clothing for less, and that could be a great way to save money, right? Especially if you have a lot of kids, etc. So I want to open it up to questions. If anybody has any questions here, looks like I got a few of you guys still on. I appreciate you being here. Thanks for being patient with me last week. For those that were here last week, I'm going to switch it back to the camera. We had some technical issues, but I hope we got it out. Let me know if there's anything you want me to address. Really, this week was supposed to be about paying off debt, but the reality is, I'm open to answer any money questions that you might have. Drop those in the chat, and we'll try to answer those. So this is from Kristen. Kristen says, I have no debt except my home and rental home mortgage. I have some extra cash and I would like to invest. Is it better to apply the money to the mortgage or invest in mutual funds? So great question, Kristen. So I think that the reality is it really is person independent, right? It's great that you have no debt, so I applaud you for that. The other thing is the market is low, but we don't know how low it's going to go overall, right? So we can't really time the market. What I will say is use this metric of 15%. Make sure that you're investing at least 15% into retirement and investment accounts. So if you make 100 grand a year, you should be putting 15 grand. If you make 200 grand a year, I'm just throwing it out there, it'd be 30 grand. That, like, just to give you a metric, right? If you're already doing that, then I would say, hey, look at, do you have kids? If you have kids, what kind of investing are you doing for their future, for their college? Set up 529 plans for them potentially. If you've already done that, then I'd say, hey, maybe it's time to look at investing, into, I wouldn't say mutual funds, but index funds. So a good example of an index fund would be like the S&P 500. So it's the largest 500 companies in America. Amazon, Tesla, Microsoft, Facebook, all these companies, even Walmart, right? There's a lot of brick and mortar stores in there too. So I don't want you to think it's all tech companies, but that would be a place where you could invest some of the extra cash that you have. But just know that there is volatility, right? But we're at a lower point and it could go lower. Who knows? But the safest bet is paying down the mortgage. And for us, my parents both had their houses foreclosed on. And so for me, I was like, I never want that to happen to my family. So that was really adamant about, hey, we're going to figure out a way to pay ours off early. So it was less about a financial equation and more about a personal equation of what made sense for us as a family. And then now we have more money to invest because we don't have that $2,400 a month mortgage payment anymore. And I know that's hard because a lot of people now, you probably have a 3% mortgage, or 2.5% mortgage. So it makes it harder to pay off faster. So really use those kind of, terms of, hey, am I saving for my kids' college? Am I investing enough? If I want to invest some more, great. But what kind of plan do you want to have for paying off your mortgage? So one thing I'm going to run real quick here. I'm going to share my screen after I find we'll do like a mortgage payoff calculator. In fact, you know what? We have one here on Well Kept Wallet. I'm going to do this because I think this would be good since we're in the debt section of the live streams, to look at the calculator and say, hey, if we were to pay a certain amount of money each month towards the debt. All right, let me share my screen with you here. Okay, so I had this calculator. It doesn't, not much to look at, but the idea was I wanted to create something super simple that people could do. So let's just say we got a $400,000 mortgage. That's just the average mortgage here in Arizona. In different places, obviously it's different. And let's just say that it's, you got a little while ago, so you're at 4%, right? And we're going to make an extra payment. So this estimates, this is not with taxes and insurance, but that payment's around $1,893. And you're going to do an extra payment, let's say $200 a month. So you'll save 4 years off of your mortgage by doing that, and $52,000 of interest, right? So that's the beauty of this. If you start to make a plan to pay it down faster, and that's only $200. Let's just say you're like, okay, I'm going to do an extra $500 a month, just for fun, right? So we say, I'm going to pay an extra $500 a month. You're going to save $100,000 in interest and shave 9 years off a 30-year mortgage, meaning that you'll pay it off in about 20 to 21 years instead of 30 years. So you'll have a mortgage a lot shorter time frame, and you'll save $100,000 in interest. So these are the type of things just to consider when it comes to paying off the mortgage. Yeah, the interest rate's low, but look at the interest you're saving. Look at how many years you don't have to pay that mortgage payment and you have that cash flow. Another question that you want to ask yourself is, well, how much money would I need to have saved in investments so that I would be able to pay for this mortgage, right? And so I'll pull up an investment calculator real quick here. If you have any more questions, definitely drop them in the chat. Appreciate it. So I'm gonna do this investment calculator here. And so basically we say, hey, if I had $100,000, well, we'll just make it simple. So I don't even have to run the calculator. If I had $100,000, they have what's called the safe withdrawal rate of 4%. And that can be argued, but we're just gonna use it for our number's sake, right? So 4% of $100,000 is $4,000, right? So if you had $1,000 invest or $100,000 invested, you could pull out $4,000 a year typically with low risk. Well, the challenge is $400 or $4,000. That's not anybody's mortgage payment for, that's for a year. I mean, so you're gonna have to say, okay, how much? So if my mortgage payment is $2,000 a month, I need 24 grand a year of income just to pay down that mortgage, right? So if we said times 6, so you need to have $600,000 in investments to pay for your house, right? So that's another part of the equation is how much are you investing just so that you have money to pay for your mortgage payment, right? So it's another reason to consider paying off your mortgage early. So I appreciate the question, Kristen. Let's see here. It looks like I've got some issue here with YouTube. Let me know if you're having an issue watching it in the chat. I'm going to see if I can make an adjustment here live so that you don't have that issue. Bear with me while I check this out here in the stream. The output looks good. Okay. We're going to open this. All right. So we got some buffering going on here. Let me know if you can. I know we got a couple of you guys left here. This might be a good part to wrap it up. I do appreciate all your questions. I'm going to